But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne, and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in-store, and exclusive access to sold-out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job has just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer, streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
Hey there! Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
All right, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's the podcast where I speak to independent musicians to find out how they've got by in an industry where opportunities are pretty thin on the ground. On today's episode, I got Eugene from Gogol Bordello. I go way back with Gogol Bordello. I remember getting a sampler CD in 2007, seeing them at Reading Festival and hopping in the circle pit around then. I feel like Gogol Bordello, like one of my best friends had a Gogol Bordello sticker on their bass guitar. Shout out Matt Tinsley, still see him all the time. He could play Maxwell Murder by Rancid. Matt Tinsley could. I was very impressed, and my image of that is the Gogol Bordello sticker. We used to go see them when they played in London, and speaking of which, they're on tour in the UK from next week. from the 4th of December, that's Monday, isn't it? They'll be in Glasgow, then Manchester, Newcastle, Birmingham, Nottingham, Norwich, Bristol, London, Cardiff and Brighton. That's going to be good, isn't it? Some of those shows are sold out, but if you can make any of those shows, I highly recommend it. Chances are, if you're listening to this, you know what an experience seeing Gogol Bordello live is. And they got a new tune that just came out featuring Bernard Sumner, who produced the record, and he plays on the record. And it's a cover. It's a cover of Solidarity by Angelic Upstart, R.I.P. Menzies, who sadly passed last year. Yeah, there's so much stuff going on in this song. So much heart, so much legacy, and of course, looking towards the future and what's going on in this world. All the oppression, all the tyranny, all of the austerity, but the love that we need to keep for each other and the family, whether we are blood related or not, to keep beside ourselves. Cheers for listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. Eugene will be with us shortly. I just want to shout out 2000 Trees Festival, who support the show. Brilliant independent rock festival in the UK, in Cheltenham, just a few hours away on the train from London. And next year, the Gaslight Anthem will be headlining. Hot Mulligan are playing, Manchester Orchestra, the Mysterines, Gouge Away. That's just a few bands for next year. They're going to keep on announcing excellent bands and artists as we go. But right now is the cheapest you can get your tickets for 2000 Trees Festival. And if you buy your tickets before the end of the year, then you can get a free refund if you find out that later on you can't go. So get your tickets now to 2000 Trees at 2000trees.co.uk. Independent festival, independent retailers, brilliant bands. You go there, you have a great time, and you come home from it feeling satisfied, feeling rewarded, like you've been part of something special. That's my experience from 2000 Trees anyway, and I wholeheartedly invite you to join me there. 2000trees.co.uk. Okay, before we get into this chat, I've got Rebecca from Ampollo here. Ampollo is the first all-in-one app connecting a global community of musicians and bringing an all-in-one place to practice, record and collaborate. Until now, practicing has been kind of lonely. There's been technical barriers. These are all things that Ampollo is working to make your life better for. Isn't that right, Rebecca? What's going on over there?
Interestingly, we've been having lots of conversations with students and teachers in universities and colleges, and there's this big push of people wanting to use it as part of their curriculum to accelerate learning and change the way that music is taught. You're able to talk to each other in real life within the same project. So forget about jumping back to WhatsApp and emails and things like that. I can watch back your performance and say, that bit was great, this bar needs a bit more practice. So we've been getting feedback that Ampollo is a total game changer for music education, and it's so much easier using this than using multiple apps and jumping around to communicate with each other. So it's a really exciting space.
Ampollo, get on it sooner than later. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and people who don't give a fuck, here is Eugene from Gogol Bordello. 101 part-time jobs. Going back to, I feel like, tell me if you're wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, like playing music for you was and is like a pass to, or a liberation, a kind of a visa to freedom. Playing music is that vehicle to freedom, or to work towards freedom.
Well, isn't it for everybody? It's just more tangibly pronounced here and there for some people. And when you grow up in dictatorship, it's definitely that thing, because it's a portal. You live essentially in a kind of a coloring book where any kind of flamboyance is downplayed and subdued, and And so the music becomes kind of an instant to go to thing that that you just rock and roll music was capable to infuse people with so much endorphins and enzymes and vitamins that were not available anywhere else. And a lot of times people in the West kind of take it for granted. But if you grew up on a kind of coloring book, as I said, that becomes like a really, really thing to go to anytime you feel malnutritioned by the system. You just go straight to music, and you get it done.
Mm-hmm. Music does that, doesn't it? I mean, growing up in London, I really remember the first time I saw a local band, and it felt like I was given this feeling that I would never lose the rest of my life. It was like I was part of the club.
Yeah.
I was just sort of filled up. Yeah,
you get that exposure to the secret knowledge initiation kind of vibe, for sure. And in a strange way, England is kind of very as different as it is from anything in Eastern Europe. But I think some of the characteristics, perhaps the climate and some of the hardships of England as England are kind of there. Some of those like common existential hardships, somehow, and people from Eastern Europe can relate to that more. I mean, you go to Manchester and, which we played numerously, and you kind of see that industrial working class thing. I mean, of course, in case of Eastern Europe, it's more so and more magnified, and it's more drastic. But that quality of it is and you see why great music comes from those places. It's just people really trying to color their life out, and
there's huge austerity, and people are angry in England. A lot of people are angry.
There's that. I mean, there's a lot of angry people anywhere, but music is service to, yes, also to angry people. And but I think that's why we always had such an affinity with English music lovers. I mean, we always had a good appreciation in starting with our first show in London and Tate Modern. I think it was 2003 or 4, maybe.
At Tate Modern?
Yeah, that was our first show in London.
What happened there? I didn't know Tate Modern had shows.
Chaos, havoc, general, general upset of the apple cart. I mean, back then, we were very much. Here's the thing: Gogol Bordello was always kind of more than a band. And it was something that was almost partly a band and partly a kind of a situationist, Dadaist happening of some kind. And so because of kind of the rowdiness and the explosive nature of the band, by the time we're all banned from all the clubs in New York, a place that kind
and
of...
that happened, you were getting banned from clubs in New York?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Repeat your question again?
That you were getting banned from clubs for being too excited, for having too much fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were banned from literally every place in New York. We had to sniff out some new places in that were not really clubs. And that's how, in the same time, the art scene, who was unaware of us being, who were just more operating on mythology of this going to be this some kind of happening. So they kind of sheltered us for a while. And so we played Whitney Biennale and Twice and a bunch of other galleries, So kind of right. Finding a refugee playing in galleries because they didn't have the regulations yet. So the word spread into somehow we got a call from Tate Modern, and and it's funny to remember because there are clubs, there are bands who get banned from clubs, but how the fuck you get banned from CBGB? And we still
remember you pour in the, well, I suppose they didn't have taps at CBGB, but what kind of thing would you know, when you got written up for that, what would they say? What would they say why they banned you?
I'll tell you exactly, because my friend was working the sound there at the time, and Gabi Molotov, he was a singer from a Molotov cocktail band. He was from Romania, and, you know, he was a punk rocker, Lower East Side, you know, authentic guy in the movement. And he told me exactly how it is. It was basically because, you know, I mean, CBGB's seen it all, you know. It wasn't because of rowdiness on stage. It was about a kind of a particular kind of a disorder that was going on in the crowd, because a lot of crowd was on stage with us. The band would be like, half of the band would be all the way by the entrance, and then the people would be still coming with like percussions and, you know, these drums to join the show into the CBGB, blocking the entrance. And since they were blocked, they were playing outside on the sidewalk with us while we were on stage, and it was just too much to handle. Like, you know, it was the kind of show that was literally defied like any idea of what fucking show is. You know, there was just like
refugees. Actually, sorry, go on.
It was a really exciting time because we were just figuring our way out. So, you know, if I'd meet like Brazilian samba school guys and girls who were like, hey, we like your vibe, like maybe we should do something. And I'd be like, yeah, we're playing, you know, in CBGB's next week, so turn up. And then like 30 of them would turn up with samba drums. Like, okay, what do we do now?
And that's the spirit of Gogol Bordello, right? You'd keep on bringing band members. You'd keep on being, you know, almost, you know, a place of refuge. When you talk about there about getting kicked out of clubs, I think of you're as people, as a band, you're made up of immigrants and refugees in, you know, sort of in the real world, and then in the music world, you're the same. You're doing that there as well.
It's you know, the egregor of Gogol Bordello just attracts that kind of people, you know, that are up for, they're very adventurous. They have a higher than average stamina and you know, energy and things like that, you know. So
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds like I want to join.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's there was a lot of times when before kind of years of touring that was like Warped Tour touring, or kind of touring that's just very ahead of network and stuff. There was a lot of times, unless for that touring, a lot of times just wouldn't even know. I didn't really know how many people in the band.
Yeah.
You know, like even Ori, or a saxophone player at early years, you know, who went on to start his own project, Balkan Beatbox. I think he just kind of turned up for one of the shows, and then turned up for a gig, and then, you know, like turned up for some tours, and then he kind of didn't turn out for one of the tours, and you know, and then, you know, went on touring with Balkan Beatbox. It was just kind of, you know, it was unprecedented in a lot of ways.
So has that been like that from the beginning? You know, I love hearing these kinds of stories of individuality in music and self-expression. Obviously is in the music, but that self-expression of organizing your own world, building your own world, creating that rule book.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, well, like, because I feel like everyone on this earth, we all have particular things that we allow ourselves to do, and equally things that we don't allow ourselves to do. I find it so interesting and very attractive and fucking right on when people allow themselves to draw outside the lines. You talk about, you know, being a picture book or a coloring book that hasn't been filled in yet in Eastern Europe. I mean, allowing yourself, giving yourself the license to do that. Do you remember when you first felt that, when you first could picture that? You say, you know, this is me. This is the life I'm going to try and fucking live right now.
Yes, there was several things like that, and I think that it had to do a lot with playing drums. And I kind of got into music through backdoor because of my father, and he was an underground musician in Ukraine. So I was very well exposed to music. I've heard, Doors and Velvet Underground and the Stooges, and Jimi Hendrix when I was like, 2 days old. And
Fugazi.
There was a great advantage there. But as the guitars were just 2-3 guitars were always laying around the house. But I think that getting drum set together out of different parts of my father's brother garage. He was a painter, but he had remains of his youth days drum set. He had a hi-hat and a snare, and then we found a cymbal, and then my dad kind of helped me to put together this drum set, and just getting behind it and going absolutely fucking ham to, Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, or Slade record, the one with a fist out, it was very, so full of I was getting so high on endorphins that it became a really, really life transforming experience. That I just wanted to do that. And after that, I kind of picked up guitar and more. But my first instrument is drums, and you'll find it like in rock music that a lot of front men who are very drastic front men and from women started out as drummers. There's a connection. It's the most physical thing to do. It's the most blood pumping. It's singing or drumming, and drumming I think is even more so. So James Brown, Iggy, needless to say, Madonna, those are all drummers, originally. And it was playing drums to Sex Pistols and understanding that is my vibe. It's just felt so shamanic,
Yeah. And practically, were there local gigs going around? You started a band with friends. When did you start booking gigs and going on the road? Those kinds of first tours are always going to be transformative, right? Because it's like nothing you've ever seen before. What was your first tour?
Well, my first tour was already here in the States, but we started playing out back in Ukraine, and when I was still 15, booking, there was no such a thing as booking anything. I mean, it was so clang, clang, bang, bang, and let's get something. Somebody has some kind of room or some kind of basement somewhere, maybe like 20 people will fit in. And a lot of times because of the bureaucracy, and it's Soviet, back then Ukraine was Soviet Union, so without any kind of permission, I couldn't do literally fucking anything anywhere. So I remember that we found a kind of one cool person that was kind of sympathetic with us, that that he was running some kind of supposedly for the youth facility, some kind of tiny room. I said, can we please have a concert there? And he said, well, we don't have a stage, so I can't put it down on paper that it's a concert. I said, well, we don't need a stage. He goes, well, to have a concert, you need a stage. So I was like, well, okay, fuck it, we'll build a stage. How about that? And he's like, let that be the way. So bring in the fucking plywood hammers and fucking start rocking, we would do that, Like the first time we ever played, we actually had to build this, excuse of a stage, and and performing. Of course, it fucking fell apart as we got on it. But
what were when you get to that age of 16 and you start becoming an adult, or you start standing your own 2 feet. In what was it like for you? What opportunities did you have in Ukraine? What were you expected to do?
Not very many opportunities. I was looking at the opportunities how to leave, because Soviet dictatorship was a kind of for a person like me who was like into music, and my friends who were already been on that path for a while, and I've seen they were cult heroes and they were very revered, and but I mean, people were like just scraping by, and they might have still lived a very bohemian, awesome lifestyle, but that run was pretty short in Ukraine, and typical prerequisites of it, drugs and all that was just kind of part of it. So our expectations were not very great. But the thing is that it was the art vibe. We were so high on the art vibe that we just did it anyway. Like, having that lifestyle was still a greater payoff than, being this kind of trolley bus person who just does this and then they go to college and then they go and get a government job. Like, that wasn't considered for us. Like, we knew we knew we're gonna fail that. So,
Do you ever stop and reflect and think back, like, wow, how did we do that?
Well, I mean, there is a degree of, universe helping out. But, and then, we know how to say thank you to that. And same time, there is esoteric way of looking at luck is different from get lucky. It's a kind of a focused effort, and it's about intention. And I think that the clarity of intention really does have a lot of power. It's not a myth.
Yeah.
So things will align as long as your intention is distilled. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take might be longer than you think, maybe shorter than you think. But I am certain that mechanism that's of alignment with your intention is definitely out there.
I was thinking recently about how you can get someone on stage and say that their music isn't really your kind of thing. If that person believes in themselves so much and has so much confidence and has this real what I'm doing is fucking awesome, you get won over by that.
Absolutely. It's when the person feels like that, their frequency is very high, and people can see that frequency, and it's contagious, and they acknowledge it consciously or subconsciously. It can be absolutely drastically not your style, but as long as through authenticity and a downright honesty of expression, person escalates their own frequency to maximum potential, and that just shines right through. And that's what we witness when we go and see whatever it is, whether it's great ballet or whether it's Darby Crash on stage. As long as they're matching their personal frequency of their idea of levitation, it's kind of it's undeniable.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
101.
Gypsy punk is the way that, you know, will always be the strapline beneath Gogol Bordello.
Yeah.
Did you find your people quite quickly? Because I guess, you know, in music, you know, I'm a journalist, I get PR emails, you know, it's about being able to say something in a sentence and describing something. And, you know, as sad as that is sometimes, quite often it can also help. You know, it's like when you're recommending a band to your friend, you're like, oh, check out this record. It sounds like Minor Threat, or it sounds like this, it sounds like that. Did you find your people where you could kind of bounce off them and you could kind of see yourself through them and build the vision of Gogol Bordello in that way?
Absolutely. I think that if you look through, you know, the personalities that, you know, it unites, there's several like stomping legs. So one of them is definitely, especially in early years, it was knowledge, whether deep knowledge or at least some kind of understanding of gypsy music, like beyond you know, a corny idea of it. Mm-hmm. People were really glued together by appreciation of Taraf de Haiduks, Fanfare Ciocarlia, just like really badass bands from Eastern Europe, from Romania, you know, from Macedonia, from West Ukraine, where that music is really, really raw and vibrant and requires degree of virtuosity, which is kind of what allowed us, you know, having virtuoso players like Sergei and Yuri, you know, our violin player and accordion player, who were classically trained, allowed us to kind of, you know, create a version of punk rock that was not there before. I mean, it's fucking delusional to try to think that you can do something new in music. Like, it's impossible, basically. And I didn't think that we will be able to do that. I thought we'll be, you know, I mean, I'm a songwriter. I believe in my songs. You know, you know, I was I was toiling away hard on the form, and I knew that I could grasp and capture with songwriting alone, which is how it started. Just Gogol Bordello was my post-punk, post-hardcore. After a decade of doing that with various bands, right, I kind of started with acoustic guitar, a storytelling, songwriting in Eastern European musical idiom. Yeah, and but I was pretty sure that everything has been done, and just being kind of like big fans of Birthday Party, you know, and the kind of musical audacity that it takes to create that kind of rampage like Birthday Party does, or you know, or James Chance and the Contortions. And I guess our frequency was pretty high on that front. So
where would you find out about those bands? Were they stocking those records in the local shop?
Well, I listened to Birthday Party back in Ukraine when I was like 15 years old.
So I mean, back in Ukraine, I mean, where do you think that you found out about Birthday Party?
Tape culture. Yeah. Tapes. Yeah. And there were some vinyls, but it was unattainably expensive. And mostly tapes, some records, but for underground music, you know, for super underground was tapes, of course.
And people would tape off each other and share them and do trades.
Oh, yes, of course. And they were very well curated tapes, you know. Yeah. Like you'd get, you know, closer Joy Division on one side and, Devo on the other. And,
awesome.
you get, Punk and Disorder.
What an education.
Yeah, on one side and, GBH on the other. And it was just very, Cure and Bauhaus. On that DAF, Deutschland Amerikanische Freundschaft, and I stürzte dann Neubauten, the Cramps, that was Sonic Youth, Sonic Youth.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Played in the Train, that was amazing.
Yeah.
So
you're pulling from a lot of that. You're pulling from a lot of those worlds.
Yeah, I mean, that, in a way, it kind of set the vector, for me to go to New York, I mean, it did set the vector. Mm-hmm. So once I got to New York...
What year was that? Sorry.
What's that?
What year was that you went to New York?
I moved to New York in 97.
Okay. A couple of years before the first Gogol Bordello record.
Yeah. And but at that time, I was already that was my decade of just blasting through with electric guitar, rage, and all that hardcore psychobilly experiments. I love all that music up until this day, but at that time I felt like I reached some plateau that something different needs to happen. So circling back, what you were asking, the cool thing about is that when we went on first tours, I could actually tell by reaction of people that we were doing something drastically new and different. It wasn't, it was kind of beyond gratifying. I mean, people were coming out going "What the fucking fuck?" Because I mean, what the fuck is it? It's like a punk hardcore band with no bass at the time, and fucking these guys were top-notch orchestra pit guys who just do just about any fucking arpeggio or and so fluently good in Eastern European gypsy music. They literally fucking crawled out of the crack in the land in Carpathian Mountains, So we were able to blow people out with that and put our mark as, hey, this is some kind of a very rough sympho punk hardcore, and experiment from there. Yeah.
Well, when moving to New York in the 90s, at the late night, it was very different to how New York is now, right? You read about how it was a bit dirtier, that there was maybe more ways to kind of get by and kind of live in the cracks of the underground. Is that true?
It's true, and it's also true that it is still like that if you are, know where to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me, for the New York that I'm in, it hardly changed. Or our internal folklore is kind of the way our kind of group of people, our circle describes itself as New New York. And the New New York is basically old New York, and delete all that crap that happened in the middle.
Yeah.
So it was awesome when I moved here. And the fucking thing is that people back then were already telling me, "Oh man, it's not the same. You missed it all." But
yeah,
it's rather has to do with your own perspective, and and after I missed it all, yet another fucking whole chapter of Lower East Side madness began with Gogol Bordello, and it became like a center of many different scenes, and Latin American immigrants, and Italian, French, Scandinavian, Eastern European. It became like a big scene where immigrant punk rock was just blazing, and gypsy music was thriving. So, but the late 90s and the turn of the century was definitely very cinematic. I mean, it's bands were very cool. We would play with, we would play with bands like Speedball Baby, Big Lazy, Psychobilly, kind of pretty very John Spencer, Blues Explosion kind of influenced bands. Speedball Baby, Gunga Din, was very cool band that featured Jim Sklavounos from the Bad Seeds.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he works at the radio station that I work at, Soho Radio.
Yeah, Jim is awesome. I felt like he was one of my somehow New York relatives when I got there. I just felt like Jim was my New York uncle of some sort. And he produced our first record, which was awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I was like, well, okay, I didn't fall off too far from the fucking tree.
Yeah. And what were people doing then? This podcast isn't all about jobs, but I mean, I am like, in my life of music, I mean, jobs is a big part of who we are, whether we like it or not. We're always going to have an internal battle about working, getting the money where we need to get money and how much doing that activity affects our life. What were you doing at the time? What were people around you doing to get by?
Well, actually, I did pretty laborious things sometimes to get by, and some of them were just construction. That started my construction resume started back in Italy when I was in immigration. So there we basically talking about getting by. That was fucking getting by, because if the intersections were in Rome, the good intersections that were, profitable, if they were, you'd go down there and, rock this squidgy business. I was like 16, 17 at that time. And if that intersection, if you got there too late, say it's 6 a.m., that'll be already like, a group of Albanian gypsies who already took it. And you're not going to get them out there too soon. They're pretty tough, So
you turn up, you'd want to get there before anyone else. You want to be like, I'm here to work, I'm ready to work, get me on that van.
So there was a lot. So when that was not available, you just go to and do some kind of. There's a lot of opportunities to get some construction work done in Italy, also in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? When I first got here, and I started off by basking, but not regularly, just basking here and there whenever I needed another $100.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, but basking is a very complicated game. I was aloof to it. I just arrived to fucking, just like went to 42nd Street and started playing. 2 minutes later, a guy walks up to me like licking his fingers from a sandwich and going, throwing away his, crumpling his paper and going, "Who the fuck are you?" And I was like, "Can I help you?" And he was like, "So this is my corner. I was just having a lunch. You better take the fucking train all the way down below Canal Street and start right there, buddy. Maybe in 10 years you'll work your way up to fucking 42nd Street." I was like, "Are you fucking..." So I walked around the block, and I was like, "All right, I'm not going to do that." So walking around the block, start there. Another guy walks up to me. He's like, "And who the fuck are you?" So the hierarchy there is pretty rigid. And so I was like, all right. And things like that, carpentry, as I said, people who come from Ukraine, they usually have some kind of rutical skills.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find somebody in Ukraine that doesn't have like relatives back in the countryside, it's like, okay. There are city fucking idiots, of course, too, but a lot less of them than, in other parts of the world. and so, carpentry, kind of cow wrangling. People did it at least once or twice somewhere along the way. They kind of know how to milk a cow at least once, at least like they got close to it somehow, like somebody showed them, or So carpentry was a kind of one of the things that, as I said, we build at stages and all that stuff, so skill stays, stuff like that, just obscure stuff like that. Yeah.
Coming from that, when you first got your first, $500 or a few $100 from playing music, that first time you thought, okay, like the amount of money you're getting paid to play music versus the amount of music you're doing side hustles and carpentry and bricklaying work and busking. What was that kind of transition like for you? What was that? Were you? It's a pretty mad thing, right? Having this thing that you do for pure passion, and you think I may never get paid for it, and then there's a period of time, long or short period of time, 2 months or 2 years or longer, where it's like, okay, I need to start thinking of myself as a musician that I'm going to get paid. Okay, what was that like for you?
I didn't really get paid for a very long time, even while being with Gogol Bordello. I think the first time, the kind of experience that you referred to as, okay, there was a chunk of money that I've never seen before. That simply happened because during one of the shows on undisclosed location, I got my face smashed very brutally, and there was a situation there that I had to I was part of, and on stage, and the promoter was kind of freaked out, that this is going so out of control, so he lost like tons of money in cash, so we just like, don't talk about that, and fucking just
wow.
You know what I mean? But it was just a rowdy night that spun out of control, and but it had nothing to do with any royalties or fucking publishing. That came all much later, much later,
But side to side one dummy.
I just basically went home with like a pillowcase full of money with my fucking face bleeding all over it.
Wow. That was the first time. That was the first time you got a big wad.
Yeah.
And signing to Side One Dummy. Yeah. And getting into you mentioned earlier like Warped Tour and that network and Side One Dummy, I can see how big a label they were at the time, and still are in their back catalogue. Was that a big part of you and Gogol Bordello, like being like, okay, this is our jobs now?
No. My uncle is a painter, so he babysat me a lot. And, I kind of grew up around that world a lot, where the line of work and a pursuit and kind of this alchemic pursuit, because he was also a sculptor and worked a lot with metal and scrap metal and, doing different things out of it and melting glass and all this kind of things.
Nice.
So I never, he as any good artist, he's extremely obsessive, and he stays with the process, and just kind of growing up in that vibe and seeing that his day is 24/7 and his pursuit is 24/7, but he's kind of living it and breathing it and loving it. That was kind of vibe, I guess, I internalized. So I didn't really ever think of it as work, and I still don't, even though it is. Right. Yes, it is definitely a task, and I think the discipline. It's like a disciplined pursuit, where some parts of it are cathartic, but especially with working with, with labels and and some producers that just had kind of extra discipline, like Rick Rubin, that was kind of probably the closest it got to like being like a very, hey, like if you're inspired, that's great, but if you're not inspired, like we still got to deliver. Which is I think is in ideal is, you kind of want to avoid that, but it's not the end of the world. I was up for that challenge, and and deliver we did. It kind of was like, by the time I was just kind of had experience of cranking out material and writing songs that I did feel like, hey, I would even do exercises for myself like this, like, here's 5 topics, 5 solid topics, write 5 songs about those things. And then toss them, if they're no good,
Yeah.
Kind of that. And I love that kind of self-training.
Eugene, there's so much I want to ask you about, but we don't have too much time. I'd love to speak with you again down the line sometime, because I'd love to hear about your whole life in music. I really want to talk to you about Solidarity, the Angelic Upstarts cover, and Bernard Sumner is on there.
Yes.
Tell us about it. We started off this chat talking about punk, Angelic Upstarts must have been in the mix there for you. How did this come about? What were the sort of first motions of this track?
I'm glad you're bringing it up because we are coming to UK with this single coming out, and it's a kind of full circle around to do this extremely, for us, meaningful collaboration with Bernard. I'm a long-standing Joy Division fan. Actually, it just happens that
yeah, awesome.
Besides that, having it here, it's also all over my my wardrobe. And I think that it's a kind of speaks for itself that this song of Solidarity, written by Mansi and Angelic Upstarts back when Poland was going through their breakaway from Soviet bloc, Gdansk revolt. For people in Poland to hear that affinity and that people way the fuck over there are giving a fuck about it, and people are supporting them, feel that solidarity was so crucial that, in now time, Poland and UK being so instrumental helping out Ukraine in this, under this terror assault, and that song just kind of bubbled up. Actually, my girlfriend brought it to my attention. She's like, "You remember that song, right?" I was like, "Yes," and as I re-listened to it, I was like, "Oh my God, this is." Talking about universe bringing things together. My girlfriend pulled up the song. I always loved Angelic Upstarts. I know them very well from back in a Punk and Disorderly compilation days. That's how I discovered them. And I always had a real knack for real songwriting besides just being righteous. An awesome band. And so, then. The first time I met Bernard was, we played with New Order, I think about 10, maybe 12 years ago, and out in Poland and in Czech Republic on festivals. And so, I kind of had my everything I ever wanted to know about Joy Division moment with Steve and Bernard. But, under these circumstances, we were doing an event for Tibet, Free Tibet. And I told him that we had this idea of recording the song, and I was just really, moved by his instant response. He was just like, "Hey, what people in your country are demonstrating is just it's just kind of defies like human potential. And he was just so, his solidarity was just so tangible. And, so we made this song, we recorded it kind of in a way that it can go kind of different ways, kind of rock and synth and heavy synth and punk. And, I was just the input that Bernard brought. It was, besides vocals and besides the arrangement, but the version that he produced, it was, we were pretty much in tears, It was like, aside from being art and just a great, meaningful collaboration for great cause, here we have a great song by Angelic Upstarts, along with Neil from Angelic Upstarts also performing on a song. So it's kind of has all the components that make it super symbolic. It's about connection, people from working class who are coming out, intellectuals from working class who know what their mission is in life. They are there to struggle for sure, and they're gonna make it through. Like all of us, I think that the working class backbone is a kind of unifying factor here, And so it turned out beautifully. It has all this symbolic components, but it's also very handmade. We talked. We connected. This was done, also with help of Zachary Allen Starkey, a guy who has a ZAS who tours with New Order and kind of supervised the project. So we're very excited for people to, chime in and enjoy it and understand its symbolism, Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to hear it and they're going to inform themselves on Angelic Upstarts. There's going to be a Joy Division, a tangible piece of music, from Bernard. I know Bernard does a lot and he's still active, but it crosses those worlds, which is a magical thing.
Yeah, it is. And, my friends in Ukraine already nicknamed this track, the ones who heard it, Blue and Yellow Monday.
That's great.
Hey, it's really, I really love the heavy synth version that Bernard created and mixed and produced, and just his input was awesome. And there are several different versions. They're drastically different, but I think it's really soul felt,
Hey, Eugene, thank you so much. Cheers for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yes, man. Thank you so much.
There he was. Really great to chat with Eugene, hear more about his story, hear about more of his tales. I can't believe that one of Gogol Bordello's first London shows was at the National Portrait Gallery. I cannot picture that. I'm going to dig out some photos of that. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can go back and listen to over 300 episodes now that we've done at 101 Part-Time Jobs. Lots of punk rock, lots of interesting music. Just scroll down and find someone you like. That's the way it works, right? If you've enjoyed it enough to subscribe, please subscribe and leave a review or a rating if you've got 30 seconds. All of that stuff massively helps me in the show to keep on getting brilliant guests like Eugene and beyond. I'll be back next week with episodes with Speed, with Lauren Hibbard, with Benny from the Gaslight Anthem and more. So check in with me next week. Subscribing is the best way to do that. And I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Sunday, 101.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.